The First Well, retold by Bookbox. There once was a small kingdom around a lake. One very hot summer, it did not rain, and the lake dried up. People grew anxious and went to the king. "It has not rained for so long. Our fields are barren," said the farmers. "There are no fish to catch. How shall we earn a living?" asked the fishermen. "Save us from disaster, good king," urged the women, as their children cried with thirst. The king sent his 4 generals in all directions to look for water. The first general went east towards the sunrise. The second went south to the dust and heat. The third went west where the sun sets. And the fourth followed the North Star. They searched day and night, night and day, high and low they searched, everywhere, but in vain. 3 of the generals returned, empty-handed. But the general who had gone north was determined not to fail his king. At last he reached a cold mountain village. As he sat at the foot of the mountain, an old woman came by and sat next to him. The general pointed at the horizon and said, "I belong to a beautiful kingdom where it has not rained for a whole year. Can you help me find water?" The woman motioned the general to follow her up the mountain and into a cave. "We have no water in our country either," she said. Then, pointing to the icicles in the cave, she continued, "We call this ice. Take some, and your kingdom will never go thirsty again." The general broke off a huge piece. Loaded it onto his horse cart, and rushed back home. By the time he reached the court, the enormous icicle had melted into a small lump of ice. Nobody in the court had ever seen ice, so everybody gazed at it with wonder. "This must be a water seed," one of the ministers exclaimed suddenly. The king ordered the water seed to be sowed immediately. While the farmers dug a hole, the lump dwindled in the sun. They swiftly placed the seed in the hole, but before they could cover it up, it had vanished. The farmers there grew confused and worried. They dug deeper and deeper into the earth, all night long, looking for the mysterious seed. At the break of dawn, the king found the farmers fast asleep around a hole. Curious, he peeped in and cried out in amazement, "Wake up, my worthy men! The water seed has sprouted. There's water in the hole." This is how the first well was created.
The Little Pianist by Bridge Kotari. There was once a little boy named Azul. He loved to play the piano and dreamed of becoming a pianist someday. Every Sunday, Azul went to his piano class and practiced every night at home, just before going to bed. Azul became good at it because he was so sincere. He would forget to brush his teeth, but would never forget to practice playing the piano. One day, Vicky, his piano teacher, told him, "Azul, you will perform tomorrow in front of a large audience. You are getting to be quite the pianist. Your fingers move like a squirrel on the piano keys. But there is something missing." "What is it?" Azul just had to know. He really wanted to be not just a good pianist, but a great pianist. Vicky smiled. She whispered into Azul's ear, a piano teacher's secret. Play with your heart, not with your fingers. As always, Vicky pulled out her box of stickers. Azul held out his hand, and Vicky stuck on it a gorgeous sticker of a butterfly. "There, think of this butterfly when you want to play with your heart," she said. That day, when all the children played in the park, Azul just stared at his butterfly. He wondered, "I can play with my fingers because I can move them. I can touch the piano keys. How can I play with my heart? I can't even see my heart." For the first time in a long time, Azul went to bed without playing the piano. The night before his performance, he did not practice because he did not know how to play with his heart. When Azul woke up, he looked for the butterfly sticker. Oh no, the sticker was gone too. Now Azul was nervous, really nervous. He tried playing the piano, but his fingers would just not move. However, that did not stop the clock from ticking. Soon it was performance time. The piano was in the middle of a round stage, surrounded by rows of people. Azul walked onto the stage, sat on the piano bench, and closed his eyes for a second. Remembering Vicky's words, he thought of the butterfly. In the quiet of the auditorium, Azul heard the flutter of wings. A butterfly sat on his shoulder and started to hum a tune. His fingers began to move by themselves. His heart began to play the butterfly's song.
The Greatest Treasure by Amit Garg. One day, Peter found a treasure map. Hooray! I'm going to find this treasure and have some adventure, he exclaimed. Peter set off. He walked a long way and finally reached a forest. There he met Lion. "You are strong and courageous," said Peter to Lion. "Will you come with me on a treasure hunt?" Lion agreed and joined Peter. The forest was dense and dark. Peter was afraid. But with Lion by his side, he made it through. When the two finally reached the mountain, they met Eagle. "You have excellent vision and can alert us to dangers," said Peter to Eagle. "Will you come with us? We're looking for a treasure." Eagle agreed and joined Peter and Lion. The mountains were tall and craggy. Lion slipped, but Peter was swift enough to give him a hand and pull him up. Eagle, with his sharp vision, watched every step they took. Soon they reached the valley below, where they met Sheep. "Will you join us in our search for a treasure?" Peter asked Sheep. "And keep us warm when it's cold?" Sheep agreed and joined Peter, Lion, and Eagle. A cold wind swept across the endless meadow. They all huddled against Sheep, who kept them warm and cozy. The four finally reached the desert, where they met Camel. "You are called the Ship of the Desert," said Peter to Camel. "Will you help us get across and join the treasure hunt too?" Camel agreed. Peter, Lion, and Sheep mounted the camel and set off happily across the vast desert, with Eagle enjoying the spectacle from above. camel began galloping, and everybody cheered with excitement. Crossing the desert on Camel's back was thrilling. The five finally reached the ocean, where they met Turtle. "Can you help us cross the ocean?" Peter asked Turtle. "We're on a treasure hunt." Turtle agreed and joined Peter, Lion, Eagle, Sheep, and Camel. The rough waves almost drowned the party, but Turtle skillfully transported them across. They met Owl on the other side. Owl spoke from his ancient wisdom. "Congratulations! You have found the treasure." "Where is it?" they all exclaimed in surprise. "Together, you have passed the forest, climbed the mountains, dared the valley, braved the desert, and crossed the ocean. You would never have done it without one another." They all looked at each other and realized that Owl was right. They had found friendship. Indeed, they had found the greatest treasure ever. Rosa Goes to the City by Ahmed Garg. In the middle of a big city, there was a small zoo, and inside lived a baby elephant. Her name was Rosa. The zookeeper loved little Rosa very much and cared for her in every possible way. Many visitors came to see Rosa and watched in fascination as she ate a dozen bananas in one go. Rosa was well looked after, but she missed the company of other elephants. One day, after feeding Rosa, the keeper forgot to lock the door of her cage. Soon she was out of the zoo. First, she came across an ice cream vendor standing by the roadside. He saw Rosa and ran away. The curious little elephant stuck her trunk into the icebox. Something tasted so cold, sweet, and delicious that she simply gulped it all down. Rosa kept moving about, her eyes searching for someone. Finally, inside a shop, she saw a herd of elephants on a television screen. "Friends," she thought, and marched into the TV shop. Everybody inside the shop ran out, leaving her alone. Rosa tried talking to the elephants on the TV screen, but they didn't reply. Confused and disappointed, she walked out. Back on the street, she saw a coconut seller selling coconuts. "Wow! I've found a ball. It's playtime now," she cried and kicked a coconut high into the air. flew across the road and landed right beside a boy playing in the park. Rosa ran across the road, determined to get her coconut ball. Cars screeched, buses honked, and drivers began to yell at each other. Rosa had created a traffic jam. The traffic police moved in to take control. The zoo was informed. Ignoring the commotion around her, Rosa simply ran into the park. She stopped in front of the little boy, who was smiling at her. He giggled and patted the elephant. Rosa trumpeted back with excitement at her newfound friend. By now, the zookeeper had reached the park. Seeing Rosa in the open space of the park, he understood that she would never be happy in a cage. The zoo transferred Rosa to a protected forest, away from the city, where many other elephants roamed freely. Rosa grew up very happily. Now, instead of watching Rosa behind bars in a cramped cage, visitors could see her among lots of trees, still gulping down.
The First Christmas. Retold by Eliane Pinheiro and Maura Hurley. Around the month of December, children like to imagine what happened on the very first Christmas ever, even before Santa Claus. I know the story well, for I was watching it all from above, in the dark sky on the evening of December 24th, oh, so many years ago. I am the Star of Bethlehem. I was requested by angels to shine brighter than all the other stars that night, to tell the whole world that a very special child had been born to spread goodwill and peace. And this is the story of the first Christmas. All was quiet that night as I watched the three kings traveling slowly on camelback through desert lands. Just then I beamed brightly as the angels had told me to. The kings noticed me in the east. They couldn't resist my brilliance. Perhaps they had heard that a star like me was going to show the way to the Son of God. Traveling through the night, the kings met shepherds watching over their flock. We are following that incredibly beautiful star there in the east to find the place where the Son of God has just been born. From there, they all traveled together, watching me, the brightest star in the sky. Finally, they arrived at a small town called Bethlehem. and saw that I was gleaming radiantly above the barnyard of an inn. All was quiet and peaceful. Their caravan entered the barnyard to see the tender little baby lying in a simple manger fluffed with hay. Next to the baby were Mary and Joseph, his mother and father, and many farm animals. The kings offered the precious gifts they'd carried from afar for baby Jesus: gold, frankincense, and myrrh. The shepherds kneeled on the ground to pray. They were grateful for the gift of love and the purity the baby brought. Many people offered gifts after that. I suppose this is why, on Christmas Day, people around the world enjoy offering gifts as a sign of love and hope. And they try their best to bring happiness to others, as Jesus did all his life. Now, I'd like to wish you a holiday season that shines as brightly as the Star of Bethlehem.
Tihar Jail. The jail warden led me through a dark, winding passage. I was almost suffocated by the humid stench of the open gutters that lined the walls. Soon, we came to an opening where hundreds of people, all dressed in striped rags, stood looking at me in wonder. The warden suddenly broke the silence by yelling some commands at the crowd. Where there was space for 2,500 prisoners, more than 10,000 were herded together within the walls of Tihar Jail. I thought to myself, if there was a hell on earth, this was it. That very moment, I realized why I had been posted as the Inspector General, or IG, of the infamous Tihar Jail in Delhi. I had to do something to improve the condition of the prisoners. I knew that it would be the toughest challenge in my career. I began to visit the prisoners every day. I was told that the IGs posted there before me never set foot inside the jail premises. In the beginning, the prisoners would crowd around me and not speak much because they feared the wardens. I would sit among large groups and discuss their problems. I knew that apart from improving the hygiene and general condition of the prison, I had to also keep the prisoners busy so that they would not have any time to get into trouble. I started by introducing some simple but effective routines for them, such as walks around the prison, sporting events, and cultural events like singing and acting. I soon formed a group of trusted officials who helped me. A major problem that my team and I faced was that of religious groupings and enmity between them. To put an end to this danger, we began to celebrate festivals from all religions, such as Rakhi, Holi, Ramzan, and Christmas. This helped the inmates to accept each other's religious practices and even feel good about participating in them. I also made sure plenty of books were available. Soon, many universities began to offer courses for the prisoners. We introduced meditation and helped them think positively and plan their life after prison. I was posted in Tihar jail between 1993 and 1995. Those 2 years were the most fruitful years of my life. On my last day, as I went on my usual round of the prison, I saw what could only be described as an ashram of Indian rishis. Hundreds of hardened criminals who had committed the worst of crimes were sitting peacefully in meditation. The grounds were green and filled with sunlight. Inmates were either preparing for exams or learning a craft that they were passionate about.
The Elves and the Shoemaker, retold by Bookbox. Although Peter Schumacher worked hard and was kind to everyone in the village, he could never earn enough money making shoes. On this particularly cold and snowy day, all he had left in his workroom was enough leather to make one last pair of shoes. That evening, Peter carefully cut up his precious leather and laid it aside for the morning, when he would sew them together. The sun rose the next morning, and Peter was ready to start work. But to his great surprise, an exquisitely crafted pair of shoes sat on his work table. "What magic!" said Cecilia, his wife. They quickly put the shoes in the shop window, for the holiday shopping season had just begun. As luck would have it, the shoes fitted the finicky Mrs. Sniggins perfectly, and she paid a generous sum for the fine fit. With the money, Peter went to buy more leather, enough for 2 more pairs. That evening, he once again set to work cutting his leather, and he left the pieces on the table when he went to bed. Hoping for a good design, he fell asleep dreaming of shoes. When he awoke early the next morning, he again found 2 finely crafted pairs of shoes before his eyes. Customers bought these up quickly, for they were masterpieces. Now Peter could buy enough leather for 4 pairs of shoes. This magical business went on for some time, and Schumacher's name became well known for the finest shoes in town. These days, life was much better for Peter and Cecilia. One day, Cecilia said, "I wonder who's been helping us so much." Peter announced, "Tonight, we will hide in the workshop and see what goes on there." And so they did. At exactly midnight, 2 tiny elves tiptoed in and began to work. swiftly making the fine shoes. They were shabbily dressed and weren't even wearing shoes themselves. Before daybreak, they had already dashed off, leaving several pairs of shoes ready for sale that day. Peter and Cecilia were grateful to these little elves and worried about them working so hard in such cold weather. So Peter set to work making 2 tiny pairs of shoes, and Cecilia stitched 2 warm sets of clothing for each of them. On Christmas Eve, instead of leather pieces, they set the little shoes and clothes out and hid themselves again. At midnight, the elves popped in and saw the new clothes. In a flash, they had them on their little bodies. They were so happy that they laughed and chuckled and danced right out the window, never to be seen again. Peter continued making shoes every day, and he and Cecilia lived a very happy and contented life for many years, as did the elves.
The Whispering Palms by Deepa Gangwani and Tina Suhanik. Mori was a little girl with big brown eyes. She lived with her parents in a beautiful coconut grove next to a small blue lake. Every morning, she balanced a big empty basket on her head as she walked down to the lake. Her mother followed with the laundry, and her father brought the big fishing net. Her mother washed the clothes on a stone next to the lake, while her father went fishing. He dragged the net ashore, and they collected the fish in a big basket. Sometimes a turtle got stuck in the net, but Mori always hurried to the rescue. One sunny morning, while fishing with her father, Mori said, "If we catch so many fish, one day there won't be any left." Her mother laughed and sent her off to school. Under the shade of the trees, Mori's mother fell into an uneasy sleep. She dreamt of a lake with no fish, while the wind in the palm leaves whispered, "The waters in the land have always taken care of your family." So you have to take care of them in return. She awoke with tears in her eyes, for she didn't know how to bring up Mori without selling enough fish. All afternoon she sat, weaving coconut mats and thinking about her dream. That night, Mori heard her parents whisper as the oil lamp burned deep into the night. The next morning, her father gave her a smaller basket. "How can we carry all the fish in this little basket?" Maury asked. "We will only take as many fish as will fit inside this basket," he replied. Maury was puzzled. When she came back from school, she was happy to find her mother making soap and oil from the coconuts. Maury swiftly climbed up a tree to get more coconuts. But her mother cautioned, "Don't pluck them. We must only use what the tree gives us." Her father added, "We have taken only fallen coconuts for these things. Look, we've even made this soap with a jasmine flower inside." From that day on, the family made brooms from the palm leaves and wove mats from coconut fiber. They took soap, oil, and only a small number of fish to the market. When Maury grew older, she loved to carve tiny turtles out of coconut shells and always wore one around her neck.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. I grew up in a family of sports lovers. My father adored tennis. He was a national champion. And my mother was a badminton player. After school, our whole family met at the tennis coaching center. My mother would come from home dragging along a bag that had everything from hot milk and fruits to tennis clothes. My younger sister Rita and I would run all the way to the court right after school. We would sit together on the side bench and try to finish our homework while waiting for our turn. As a teenager, I traveled all over the country playing competitive tennis. I didn't have much money then and had to travel in unreserved train compartments. The travel would be exhausting as I hardly ever got a place to sit. However, the benefit of third-class travel was that students got the ticket at half price. But it was hard to get a hold of the form that would allow me to do so. The secretary of the Tennis Association issued these forms and was a very important person. He liked to prove his importance by making applicants wait. Sometimes I wasted an entire day waiting to see him. I had homework, exams, tennis, and often extra fitness sessions, but had to sit in a queue which never seemed to move. I would beat my fists angrily on the bench, feeling helpless. On one such occasion, after waiting for hours in a queue, when I finally managed to see the secretary, I couldn't hold myself back anymore. I told him in a serious tone, "I have learned from you that I must always respect the needs of others. When I grow up, I will never make anyone wait like this. I will value others' time." The secretary was furious And can you guess what he did? I was already a national junior champion in tennis, and as was the norm, I was waiting to be nominated to play at Wimbledon. It had been my dream to participate in this prestigious event. But the secretary chose someone else instead of me. I felt sorry for myself, but decided to work harder on my studies instead. I soon began to top my class. Today, when I look back at my life, I thank the secretary for teaching me such a valuable lesson. He helped me become a better police officer who valued people's Crane Bedi. The governor called for me. I did not quite know what to expect. He called me inside his office, looked at me and asked, "Kiran, do you know why I have called you?" I swung my head from side to side and said I did not. Then he smiled slightly and said, "Kiran, the Asian Games are hardly a year away, and the Delhi traffic condition is chaotic. I want you to take over as the Delhi traffic chief." I did not know how to react. This was a huge responsibility, and it turned out to be one of the most rewarding experiences of my career. And of course, it would win me the nickname Crane Bedi. The 1982 Asian Games that were held in Delhi were a prestigious event for India. I had to draw on every bit of my energy to regulate the traffic. I was out on the roads every morning by 8 a.m. in my white Ambassador, which was fitted with a wireless set and a loudspeaker. I held a microphone in my hand to give instructions whenever needed, while being driven around the city. During this period, I worked 19 hours each day. I would return home exhausted and collapse on my bed. In the morning, I would get up fresh and full of energy, ready to make my best effort again. It became a common sight for the people of Delhi to see me on the roads every day, clearing traffic jams. People loved it and welcomed the change. As the police department had no cranes, I hired all those available in the city to watch the roads and tow away wrongly parked vehicles. These moves sent shivers down the spines of all the drivers. They hurried into parking lots as they were scared that Crane Bedi might come. One day, a car belonging to a VIP was found parked on the wrong side of the road. The driver was waiting for the car to be repaired. A sub-inspector fined the driver and towed away the car, not caring that it belonged to a VIP. In fact, it happened to be Prime Minister Indira Gandhi's car. In spite of this, I gave all my support to the sub-inspector for performing his duty. This incident made headlines the next morning. There were many protests, but at the end, people